So we enter day 107 of the protest, and this now is our 6th Zoom call covering the events. For those of you who regularly attend, you will know that I usually start off with a reminder of the week's events. I'm not going to do that today, because we all know, we all see, and we can all hear. So no, instead, I'm going to talk about very briefly why we are here. You see, many of us started this journey to try and do whatever little we can to support and raise awareness for our people back home, no matter how big or small our contribution. And through this journey, like yourselves, I've asked myself, what difference can I make? When my tiny individual voice was so amplified by all of you that the world is now listening. So yes, I made a difference. And through this journey, we've all had disagreements with others who are on the same journey. And that's okay, because we all have the same goal. And that makes us brothers and sisters on this journey. And through this journey, you will feel dejected, angry, frustrated. And that's okay too, because together we remain stronger. And if anyone tells you to stop, tells you to give up, or suggests that this problem is not your problem, I'd like you to remind them that you have 500 years of seva running through your veins. You have 500 years of fighting for justice, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. And when you're feeling down and upset, and you feel things have just gone too far, remember you have 500 years of Chardi Kala. So before I introduce the first of our speakers, I would like once again to thank our superb speakers from last week. Each week, we continue to learn more and more, and we are thankful to those who can educate us. So on that note, I'd like to introduce the first of our speakers. And again, usually I would do a small introduction, but I'm not going to do one this time, because I feel anything I say would simply not do him any justice. Suffice to say, this is a man whose level of seva is simply an inspiration to us all. So welcome, Dr. Simon Singh.
Thank you, Sat Sri Akal ji. Thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys taking the time out to hear me out.
Dr. Singh, I'm going to go away from tradition a little bit, so I'm going to leave it all on you. What I'd like you to do, if possible, is simply tell us about your journey and how you got to where you are today and how you ended up in Punjab, stayed in Punjab, and then talk us through what life is like, your daily day is like, and how things are on the ground. And then straight after, I'm going to put you over to our audience, who no doubt will have a number of questions.
Yeah, so, born in India, I'm a very proud Indian. Born in a Sikh family, I'm a very proud Sikh. And before all, I'm a human being, right? Guru Nanak's word, be a good human being first before you start dividing yourself into other things. So, at age of 10, moved to the United States, achieved well. I mean, lived an immigrant life like many of the people who might be here, full of struggle, but kind of got through it, struggled through it like a typical, immigrant. Then, kind of live a good life now in America. Have a great house, great family. I have a wife, I have a small daughter, young daughter, 2.5 years old. I have a great career. I achieved literally top 1% in every board exams in cardio, in internal medicine, in all of medicine. So study-wise, I've done well. I have research. I've presented research at almost every cardiology conference, big cardiology conference in the United States. So was doing well. Everything was going well, and then this happened. And I come to India every year to do medical camps with our organization. And so when I saw the struggle of the people, many of the patients that I used to see there, who were calling me, and I think as a doctor, I just thought I should go to India, give it about 5 days, set up a medical camps, pay somebody to be a doctor here, and kind of get out. 5 days, saw a lot. People had a lot of expectations out of me. Things were said, whatever. And I realized slowly, 5 days turned into 10, 10 into 14. And I think by day 14, I kind of, honestly, by day 3, day 4, I realized that I got myself into a situation that I can't get out of. As a doctor, you sign up to do seva. And, you are not supposed to look at money. You're not supposed to look at all the other things in life. And you're supposed to put kind of the work that you signed up for first. And when I got here and I saw the pain of the people and I saw all the disease that I did and felt that I was like almost the last line, which we are now, getting emergency calls at night on regular basis, taking patients to the hospital ourselves when, things got to kind of get out of hand. And we realized our worth, the worth I never realized ever before in my life. So that was the decision, that I came here, and then, then I kind of stayed here. So now I'm talking to you, and I'm still, every day I feel like I'm more, I'm in like one of those, that soil, I forgot the name. The more you kind of try to get out, the more you go in. So, it's a fun journey. It's a great journey. I'll never be able to experience this ever again. I don't think anybody who's not here will not be, this is the once in a lifetime opportunity, I think, to do this type of seva in this type of environment, so feeling blessed. Yes, it's struggling, it's a struggle. Yes, we have bad days. Yes, we're going through a lot, but at the end of the day, a lot of people tell me this and I feel it. It has to be a blessing for anybody to be here, to be able to do seva like we have been able to. You have to be blessed, and I feel blessed. You guys can take over questions.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. Great. I'm going to ask anyone, if you've got a question, either put it in the chat or put your hand up and we'll go over to you. So feel free, but I'm going to fire away and take advantage that I introduced Dr. Singh with the first question. A friend of mine went out recently and he couldn't make it today, and he provided what's called holistic therapy to a number of the farmers just before Christmas. And he came back with what he told me was a concern, not so much of the physical ailments, but the psychological distress that's clearly happened over years. Is this something you're encountering as well?
So think about it, right? There's been a lot of suicides in Punjab. Not just when you look at this situation, you can't concentrate on Punjab and you can't concentrate on now. This is it's not like a new situation. People in India are living on the street. There are people in England who are living on the street. There are people in England who go to sleep at night, without food. There are problems in England. There are problems in the United States. There are problems in Canada. And there are problems in India. They're almost all similar. There are people who travel by helicopters and on the other side, on ground. Meaning there's a problem overall in society that needs to be figured out. That how can people in 21st century be sleeping on ground, or don't have the food at night on the table, or their kids are not able to be educated as my kid I hope to be, or all of you guys here are. So we need to figure out almost a plan to kind of give education and healthcare and basic needs like water, shelter to literally everybody, not 5%. Literally 100% of the people in this world deserve these like 4 or 5 things. So these problems exist in Punjab and India overall, right? There are people who sleep on the ground, don't have food, don't have water. So imagine that now being carried forward. Now you're saying that I'm going to take away maybe your land, the rights of the, your rights. And that's been going on for maybe a thousand years in India with Dalits, right? Nobody spoke up for them. Now it's happening to the farming community. Farming community people, overall, we are very tough people. We grow our soil and, we grow our seed, and that year we might not make any money, or we do losses. So every 4 years, 5 years, we make, our money. So overall, you become very strong and you become very patient. So this community is very patient and very strong. But now take everything I said and add on that, no food, bad water, being, in a situation where you're like, what's going on here? What's the end result? How can you do this to us? We are tax-paying citizens. Our kids are fighting on the border. Our kids are the same cops that you're putting us against. So it's a very stressful situation. It's an extremely stressful situation that even I'm not ready for. This is, this game, this type of thing is not even handled in all of India. There's a big lack of psychiatrists here. Depression is like, oh, it's for the weak. Sexual assault in India is like, oh, this is for the weak. So this type of stuff is ongoing in India. It's a big struggle. Even in America, it's a struggle. So I don't have the answer on how we can correct it, but we got to plug it one thing at a time, one layer at a time. And I think that issue cannot be solved here. We have to kind of go beyond this morcha to figure out the answers to that.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. I've just seen a question from a Dr. H. Singh. I'm going to read it out because he's just put it on the chat. And the question, Dr. Singh, is, it seems he's a fellow doctor as well, but he's asking, what is the number one current requirement at ground zero that you can see?
So, a lot of the food requirements are being taken care of. We're kind of okay with that. The three main requirements that I saw in the past few days was water. So we started putting filtration systems, water filtration systems. You dig a bore in the ground and you put a water filtration system in. That's been very successful. We're giving away 20 liters of bottles, which people can come and fill up and take it back to their trolleys. And we are now presently looking for water tankers, which are not that costly, that we can put behind our tractor and take water trolley to trolley to refill those filters or those water bottles, the 20-liter water bottles. So that's kind of being solved. We're in the middle of it. Number two is milk. Milk is a big situation, trying to bring milk from Punjab, because a lot of these people, don't have their cows here, right? Punjabi people or Kissans or farmers love milk. They love tea. So bringing milk is a problem, and that's something that anybody can do. We have been doing it on our end, but it's very costly. We need answers. We need better kind of handle on it. I even, ask people to build dairies here. That's something we might have to do if this goes any longer, because milk is very costly and it's costing a lot of money out of our pockets. And the third main thing is housing for the summer. A lot of these trolleys might have to go back to their villages. If we build some type of housing, so today we went out and looked for housing, and we gave order for 2 bamboo housing. It's going to be about 1,100 square feet, completely covered, and then we'll put a tarpaul on it, and very high ceiling. You can even put a fan in it. And it's going to cost about 22,000 rupees, which is about $300. So for $300, you're going to get 1,100 square foot housing, which can probably house good amount, maybe 50 people. I'll have, a clear idea tomorrow once they build it. But it's very very strong, dug in ground, even wind, water can't get out, can't get in it. So it's good. And then maybe put some type of a board on the bottom, which might cost another 5,000-10,000 rupees. That way, if there's water on the ground, your mattresses kind of stay good. So people can do that. Like if we just chip in for the housing, the 22,000 for the canvas, we're gonna leave the rest to the people. And what we're thinking about was, let's say I belong to a certain village, and I'm outside of India, all I can do is like, hey, sponsor one of those for my village, like at Tikri or Singhu. Say, hey man, build one for my village. Okay, build, and then have a place card, village this, and that way people can go on a bus, go back to their village, and whenever they feel like it, can come, because a lot of people don't come here because they can't afford a trolley and they can only travel with their village. So if you they have an option now that they have a housing on the ground here, you'll see a lot more people coming. So that's the third problem. The other stuff is tiny stuff, cleaning, keeping the area clean. So whether it's volunteers or hiring people to clean up, those are small projects because mosquito season, dengue season is coming up. So those are the other things on our highlight. I mean, we're doing a lot of stuff. Like I can tell you what we're doing. We have a medical clinic. We're planting trees. We have water filtration system, giving out milk. Have a library. Have a new show which is going to be launched tomorrow, bringing in intellectual people, trying to have a dialogue. Have a Sikhi school. Have a school on Hinduism. Uh, Basically different religions. Those are the things we're doing. We have a Modi Khana where we go out and give out food, water, whatever, in the morning at our center, and then from 2 o'clock outside. So those are some of the things we're doing. Again, these are ongoing projects where you go to the community, you kind of listen to their problems and kind of come back. So right now there's not a lot of problems. People are cool here. They know how to solve their own problems. But the main three, like I said, water being solved, milk, it's a continuous process. Housing for the summer, which we're working on, and it's kind of going well.
Thank you. A lot of that is similar to what we heard about supporting on a local level. The questions are coming in thick and fast. Also, if you want to ask a question, please direct to Dr. Singh. Please put your hand up. I know Baul wants to ask a question. Baul, if you could unmute yourself or put yourself on camera.
No, I don't have any questions right now.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. Sorry. I'm going to put you over to, I think Ange wanted to ask a question.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Soman Singh, for joining us. It's really interesting listening to you. I noticed on all the videos and on Instagram, there's a lot of women and children there as well. What's it like for them, and what can we do to help and support? Because I might, being a woman myself, my heart just goes out to them. It's hard for everyone, but must be particularly hard for the women and the children.
So some of the things that we like to do, at least at our center, like we have Ludo. Like Ludo is a Indian board game that we keep. We have Carom board. It's another board game type of thing, that people here love to play. We have small little drawing boards for kids. So basically, we keep some biscuits around, keep some chocolates around. So at least try to have a dialogue with them, try to make them happy when they're here. Sports equipment. So those are little things you can do, like toys, you can give out. So those are little things you can keep around and just kind of keep, but at the sense, don't feel bad for them. The reason I'm here is because I saw this stuff growing up, right? You have to feel the pain of your parents. You have to feel the pain of your community for you to become stronger and actually, be able to, fight this one day, right? So don't feel bad. This is something we do. This is our community, right? Sabjadi taught us this. So don't feel bad, but just find ways to help them. See how we can make their lives better, how we can help them be stronger. And so anytime I see a kid, I become extremely happy, and I try to excite them and try to, work with them. So it's good. Same thing with the ladies. They're so strong. They, love, seeing them here. And, we do our little own best, like building bathrooms so they can have a covered place where they can go to the bathroom. But these ladies are strong. Again, we were thinking about giving out that stuff. I forgot the name. When they, those ladies love to I forgot the English word, but to make sweaters. Sweaters. Yeah, knitting, right? Knitting equipment. So little things you can think outside the box and just throw and give out. Again, they don't need it. You don't have to do it. But if you do it, hey, it'd be great. I think just being supportive, right, at your own level in your country, try to speak up and try to hear their voices and let their voices be heard, that's more than enough for them.
There's a lot of questions on the chat about helping, like where do we contribute? Is there one particular place that you suggest? I know Khalsa Aid obviously is one organization. Are there any others that you think?
So our organization's website you can visit if you want. But one thing I always say about any organization, try to work with them on the ground here. Have, if you have a family member, send them there for a day. Because there's a lot of stuff you see on websites and TV that sometimes is not true. I mean, I'll bring this stuff out after we're done with this. I don't want to say anything now. But you'll put up a tent and then you'll put up 5 pictures on 5 sides and say, hey, we're doing great stuff on ground. When you're actually on the ground, and that's the sense I got this time, that sometimes, things are not the same on the ground. And the, level of work we show on social media and stuff, it's not that much. So I always urge people, hey, make sure you work with this organization on the ground. So send a family member one day before you contribute. Hey, go check it out. Go see what they're actually doing there. Are they actually making a difference? Or are they all social media buzz? That type of thing. And they shouldn't just stick around for 30 minutes. Like, make sure that you trust this family member and they're not just like one of those odd people who actually just go there and be like, oh, peace. Actually they come and help and volunteer and become part of the team and see. So they're definitely, organizations here. But if I was to say contribute to an organization, I would say contribute to the people who are serving langar, actual langar. Like Puriwale Baba, Delhi Langar, like there are people who are actually doing langar. And because I say this, because langar seva is probably the strongest element in all of this morcha. They're holding people together. This community kitchen concept is so amazing. And I think I never realized it till now. When we were all beaten up on the 26th, and when we came back to Tikri, the one thing we realized we were not going to not have is food. And that's the worth, Guru Nanak Sahib has left us with something great, and that's the langar seva. I never felt this strong about it, but, try to find out who's serving good langar, who's trying to do good seva here and help them. That's another way you can get involved. And then stay in touch with people, organizations you're involved in that work well. Make sure you give them a task as well. If you are going to invest money in somebody, then you want to see where your money went, right? So when you donate money, say, hey, you want this to be done with your money, and be able to say that, listen, it's your money, right? Why shouldn't you be able to kind of at least demand something, or, so these are some of the things you want to look out for, and donate wisely. A lot of people donate not so wisely. They do it in a rush, but donate wisely. That's all I'll say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. There's so many questions. I'm conscious of your time because you've got a day job of saving people's lives at the same time. I'm going to move on to, and only because you mentioned strong women, I'm going to pass you on to, I think it's apt to mention another strong woman we recently had the pleasure of meeting, and that's Frankie. So, Frankie, if you want to unmute yourself, and then I'll come straight to you afterwards.
Bobby, you're so sweet. Thank you. Hi, Dr. Swyman. Obviously, I follow you on social media. I feel like a dork right now, but I do have some questions. I know you brought up a big point about milk on the ground. Have you thought about refrigeration systems in conjunction with bringing cows to the protest sites, or is that kind of too out of the way? Is the milk going bad?
Yeah, that's amazing, because I'm probably the only guy who has mentioned this. Always mention odd stuff, and then somehow it comes true. So I was the one who mentioned building concrete buildings here, and next thing you know, I'm staying in a concrete building and at the morcha site, which is unbelievable. I don't know how it happened, but it just happened. I feel like I came from America and I came into America. Anyway, the one thing I did mention was bringing in cows and building up a dairy here. Again, it's far-fetched idea, but I think it might come true in the next month or two if this is kept up. Refrigerators are going to be bad because we are, a lot of people are doing kundi, where, I don't know if you understand, but they're putting wires on the main wire and getting electricity through that. So we don't have connections it's not like we have electricity connection. All these are like illegal connections that people kind of put up, and you don't want to put too much load. It's not like your country where you might have great transformers and stuff like that. So you put these too much load on it. Next thing you know, this thing explodes. So people are already thinking about putting air conditioners in their trolleys. I mean, I'm telling you, it's crazy here. You have this like want to put like air conditioners in their trolleys, and you have people who can't even afford to eat type of thing. So, but we're warning people like, hey, don't go overboard, because you're just gonna overload the connections. The wires, in extreme heat, the wires are going to start burning, and you might have some accidents, fires, and things of that sort. So you want to be careful. But your idea about bringing cows here, I think it's an amazing idea, and I think that's something we're really thinking about. But the other thing is, listen, we're in Haryana, we're not on Mars, right? There are cows here, there are farmers here, so we can easily try to get local milk, which we're trying to. Haryanvi people have been really helpful. And yeah, we're trying to get that, and I think we're gonna be okay. All I say is, listen, we're brainstorming, but we're gonna be okay.
So is like the most costly part like paying to transport the milk to and from the farms? And then if that's the case, like if we're donating to your website, are you guys like paying for that directly, or is there a different organization that's kind of handling that right now?
So there's no organization who's really doing the milk stuff, honestly. We are paying out of our pocket to do the milk stuff. Other stuff, that the other way, you have to be very smart. I think when you start saying that I'm doing this, I'm doing that, you're not really working hard enough. You're just using money to do stuff. I think the concept is not being able to just use money and do stuff. The concept is bringing people together. So you really don't have to spend any money. That should be the way. It's like a self-sustaining, and that's like a true management, right? Really going out of the way and setting up a system that kind of, you just be a good manager and be able to set up something that kind of works on its own. So for instance, what we really want to do, or what we're really trying to do is like, hey, these 8 villages in Punjab are responsible for 2,400 liters of milk on Monday. So on Monday morning, a truck is going to go to that place. It's going to take milk from those 8 villages and bring it here. And that's a donated milk. So you didn't pay for anything, but you did pay for that truck to leave from Punjab and come here. So you're not stuck on paying money for 2,400 liters of milk, because there are good people in Punjab who wants to donate. In Haryana, you just have to find that truck who's willing to transport that milk with a refrigerator. And that's where we're trying to get at in the next few weeks or a month, is set up a system in Punjab. And I've been putting this out, and we've been putting this out through several channels, where, we're trying to, do our level best to set up this community system. Eight villages, set up 2,400 liters of milk and send it here. And, do a couple of 3 or 4 of these. So kind of takes care of all the border. So that's what we're trying to do. Really, the big time organizations, and I don't know, I don't think they are into this milk and this. They have their way, and that's what the day-to-day stuff is not what sometimes they focus on.
Thank you. Jagdar, I think your hand was up as well. Could you unmute yourself?
Yeah. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Baji, I have a utmost respect for you, people like yourself who've actually gone to Delhi and helped out in the morcha. And really, from the bottom of my heart, we have a lot of respect for people like you. I heard your video, when you described how you guys were even attacked by the police when you're trying to do a good cause there, and you had no interference with the morcha. And then they're blaming Khalistani separatists and trying to take the direction in a different way. And the other one is we are sitting here in our sitting rooms where those guys are in the cold, and you've been there yourself. But we are trying to do what we can. We're putting pressure on the politicians, and we're putting pressure on the media. And to some extent, it's working now. BBC, Sky, and other media channels are now covering the issue where they were ignoring before. And then somebody raised about the donations, how we can give money. What we've done in our village, from people from our village in England, I've set up a WhatsApp group, and we have donated money and we sent it to the people in our village, and we've asked them to keep a proper account, because I don't want people saying to me, where's that money gone? And that money is used towards people's diesel to go to Delhi and any requirements they need. I personally believe that, okay, the donations going to good cause like Khalsa Aid, everybody is great. But when we normally donate to big organizations here, only about probably 30 or 40% of that money goes to the cause, because the rest is spent on the admins. This way, that directly you can spend the money to the people, you can hold them accountable. So that's one way of looking at it. And also, what when you was there, on the news, it was quite, to be honest, it was quite frightening, when those Gunde came from BJP and they were throwing stones at the other Kassans. And it must have been really frightening at that times. And what is the current situation there at time? But it's not just, I don't want to make this issue into a Sikh issue, it's a Kassan issue, but it goes without saying there is a Khane Honsle Belanda, and they stood their ground there. Even the police was joining in with the Gunde, and they were supporting them, they were watching their throwing, and they were actually arresting the Kassans. So what's the current situation? Has people now got another, it nearly died down after the 26th, and Decade's speech was really good. It brought the Kassans back from all states. So what's the current state, and what do you think? Is there a way out, or is there negotiations in, is there a way out of this? Can you see a light at the end of the tunnel, or will this go on for a long time? Thank you.
That was so many questions. I forgot the first question, but I'm gonna try my best. It's pretty late here. I think one thing you said about cops beating us up or whatever. Listen, everything that happened was because Waheguru kind of, that was the direction, right? You can't change time. Everything was already set. We are just a vehicle. Whatever happened had happened. It was wrong. There was a lot of wrongs that happened on the 26th. I don't blame anybody for it. We don't, it's pretty clear. There was a third, there are farmers, there are police officers, and there's a third party. Who is that third party that kind of created a lot of bad that day? That's up to the government to investigate. But now, having lived through this, it's pretty clear whatever happened in 84 or even in 47, how basically things are manipulated, stuff is manipulated, and people are kind of excited to do bad and fight against each other, and how bad news or fake news is spread. And now I can just imagine how 1984 happened after having lived through this. And I'm just very hopeful this kind of gets straightened out, because listen, police people are not bad. Listen, they were literally crying when we were beaten up. There's another dimension to this, that I don't know. You guys, it's pretty clear. It's pretty, listen, Jai Jawan, Jai Kissan, right? Jawan, te Kissan, make them fight each other. It's a pretty good concept, right? Who are the police officers? Who are the CRPF? Most people are sons of Kissans. Most are sons of farmers. They're Sikhs there, they're Hindus. They're God-loving people as well, right? So how could they do what they did? And we lived through that, and I saw what I saw, and it was pretty clear how these few people were kind of put into that, in whether I don't know who they were basically, but they were wearing police uniform, and they were trying to excite the police to do harm. Whereas many of them, I have many stories of police kind of doing good, basically asking them to throw away the tear gas shells even in the gutter. So whatever happened. I don't see an end anywhere close yet. That's why I keep telling people hey, save your money, be very wise with your money. This might be a long fight. That's why I always say, don't throw away your money. Make sure you build things that are sustainable. Again, we were talking about dairies, right? It's a sustainable thing. Building shelters. It's going to last for a year, 2 years. building up water filtration system, it's going to last. Whereas if you just give a bottle of water, really is not going to do anything, right? Try to build a school here. Try to build something that's sustainable, that's going to be long lasting, and it's going to have, good effects. I loved how you said support your villages. That's something I always kind of ask people to do. Try to stay away from helping organizations. You know what? If you can, the number one way, and then be very clear on how you support your villages, because you don't want to give money to one person and next thing you know, he basically goes and drinks alcohol out of it. I mean, I've seen bad stuff happen that way too. So be very clear, like, hey, I'll give this much money, I'll build a shelter for you there, but hey, when you go there, I want you to spend 7 days there. I want you to devote at least 5 hours with this organization doing seva. Not that you just go there and just sleep in your trolley all day. I want you to send me pictures from the stage where people are talking. So, when you give money to somebody, try to ask for things out of that, right? If you give it to an organization, tell them, what do you want to do with my money, okay? If you're going to give it to, your villagers, okay, what are you going to do with this money, right? Not just like, because I honestly also did the same thing. I donated money to some kids in my village. And sadly, they didn't know I was going to come here, and I came here, none of them came. So literally the people I had helped in my village, like literally gave 50,000 rupees to, didn't even come and volunteer for 1 day with me. And I, felt really bad about it, but hey, that's how you learn in life. So, be very careful on how you donate. Donating to your village, I love it. I love the concept, because when you go back to that village, people will know, people will appreciate what you did. And it's a great way to stay connected with your village and stay connected with your roots. Whereas if you donate to an organization, even Five Rivers Heart Association, whatever, hey, yes, you are connected with us, but it didn't really build that connection with your people. So that's why, I love it when people try to connect with their villages and try to connect with Punjab or India. So yeah, if you're able to donate to your village and maybe build a shelter here or do something that's kind of like long lasting for them, I think go for that. I don't know if I missed the question, but those were the two main ones I got out of your stuff.
Thank you, Dr. Singh. I'm conscious of your time and other speakers' time. I'm going to, if we can, I know you did promise me 20 minutes. We've gone over it slightly. If I can have 5 more minutes of your time, and then we'll throw in as many questions as we can in 5 minutes. If that's with you. I'm going to pass on to Jaspal, who I see his hands up.
Anji, thank you very much. Sorry, can you hear me?
Jaspal, you there?
Yes, yes, I'm here. Could you hear me, Baji?
Yes, I can.
We can.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. I'd just like to ask question for Dr. Sabdi.
We can, Jaspal.
Sorry, could you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, okay. What's the actual morale of the people now after, obviously, the 26th? What happened regarding all the negativity and the actions that happened after the 26th? What's the general morale of all the Kissans and the people at the Morcha? And secondly, basically, obviously, we do realize that the
it's a pretty
Kissan
bad
committee have sufficient funds. Is there any way yourself or other organization can tap into them, speak to them, and get some sort of maybe we could work with them and regarding the fund for projects which you've just discussed?
Yeah, I think, listen, if you work with organizations here that you have donated to, I would love to work with them. I have great ideas. There's, again, for housing and stuff like that. If we can get money on the ground, literally money on the ground here, we can do, listen, people have donated great amounts of funds to certain organizations, and some of those organizations are still not found anywhere on the ground. I don't want to say again any names, but there are organizations who have pretended that they will be here, and they'll put out videos of them stating, oh, I'm going to donate this much money or this much stuff to this morcha, and when you come here, they're nowhere to be found here. And people donate to these organizations, right? But if you know an organization that's here that you donated to, you're close to, send them an email. Say, hey, can we work together, and can we maybe build this, right? Because it's time to build shelters, small shelters, not large shelters, because people are not going to live in the large shelters. Everybody wants like that village scene, and they want it closer to their trolleys, not outside of their trolleys. And I feel it, right? And they don't want to be like, hey, male, female, this, because if you went there with your family, you want to stay with your family. So yeah, I love to work with different organizations if I'm able to, but I also see it's kind of very hard. I've tried. It's not easy to get people to kind of work together. Everybody wants to put their sign up, right? Nobody wants to say, hey, let's work together. Everybody wants to put their autograph on whatever they can put their autographs on, which kind of which doesn't really does well for Seva. When anyway, those are like not really great stories to share. I think let's kind of keep it chardi kalawal apni galbaat. So you said, how's the mood here? The mood here is great. We have daily struggles, no doubt, but every day kind of ends well. I love all the stuff that when you, like today we planted like close to 150 trees. So today was our tree planting day, right? Our team went out, planted a bunch of trees, and that's again a positive message saying what farmers are doing here. So stuff like that, we try to keep our spirits high, and whoever's around us, we try to keep their spirits high. And yeah, 26 was a bad day. It was a big letdown, but 27th was a bad day, but ever since things have kind of turned around, we're on a positive road.
Thank you. And we have a final question, and that is from Jigmohan. Jigmohan, you there? Can you unmute yourself?
Andy, Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I've just got two questions. First of all, I know, Buddy.
We can, yes.
I know you were on a Instagram call with Monica Gill from the United States midweek. Unfortunately, I couldn't stick around to hear it all. Just a quick question. One was about one of your friends, the person who's working alongside your team who got hit in the head and was really badly injured on the 26th. How is his condition now? And my next question is that, do you have any communication with units or camps similar setup like yourself with the other borders? And do you communicate on things like medication and risk? Thank you.
Yeah, so the first question, that kid is doing great. He came back 2 days ago. He's again volunteering with us. He has some injuries, whatever, but passing time, he's doing well, no problem. Second question was that communication with other camps. A lot of the medical camps here come to us to get medications. Even 2 days ago, Khalsa 8 people came and they needed some medications. We gave it to them. So a lot of the smaller camps come and they ask for medications. And I've urged them one thing, because you'll see on TV medical langar, but then you go and say, who's your doctor? They don't have a doctor there. Who's giving out medication? Not even nurses. It's literally just like, oh, I want to do seva and I'm giving out medications. Are not langar. You have to be very selective. Langar is for everybody. Langar comes, get it. But medications should be selective, right? If you're sick, you get medication. What I've put out, a message out to everybody who has camps here, that, hey, what we need to do is, if you want to get medications from us, first come, let's have a meeting. Let's try to know who are the camps, who are doctor-run camps at the borders. Let's set up a meeting. Let's try to work together. Make sure our camps are like 5 kilometers apart and we know what we're doing. And if you're able to prove to us that, hey, you're a medically run camp, then yes, we will support you with medications. But if you're not a doctor-run medical camp, then there's no way, there's no reason I should support you, or there's no reason should anybody support you, because what happens in name of seva, sometimes there's a lot of fraud that happens. You put up a medical camp. By the start of the day, you might have 2 boxes. By the end of the day, you have a room full of boxes that you might just take back and sell. Leave that on the one side. The other side of it is, if you're not a doctor, you shouldn't be giving out meds. Maybe you're an NP. Yes, you can give out meds. But if you're not a doctor, then you're really not medically qualified to give medication. And India is an abuse capital of the world when it comes to medication. It's a huge issue. Cetirizine, antibiotics, painkillers. I mean, what I've seen here is crazy. Like, especially the Malwa belt. These guys are like, they'll come to us like, oh, I have a cough. I'll be like, when did the cough start? An hour ago. And I'm like, what? Like, you just had a cough, maybe one cough, come for medication. Oh, a 19-year-old kid comes, oh, I have chest pain. Where's your chest pain? Here, I touch it. Oh, yeah, how much does it hurt? 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10. Bro, like, take, like, you know what? It's okay to have pain. Every elder person wants pain medication. Like, man, it's okay. You know, so we try not to give too many meds, and the medications are abused here. And I urge everybody, whenever somebody says they're doing medical langar or they're doing medical service, ask them who's an MBBS or an MD doctor there, and how long do they stay. So that's very bad. You know, I'm telling you, a lot of people overseas fall for this trick. Medical camp. Let's donate medications because they're doing medical seva. Trust me, it's not the same. So be careful.
Superb, thank you. Right, I did say the last question, so that's the last question. That kind of leads me to just thank you, Dr. Singh. If we could give you some kind of virtual round of applause, we would. If you don't follow Dr. Swayman Singh, I've put in his Instagram address. Please do. He provides regularly, nightly updates, and they are absolutely superb. So once again, thank you, Dr. Singh. You're more than welcome to stick around. We've got a number of other speakers, but I'm also conscious of your time as well. But honestly, thank you so much. And we hope we hope we won't see you again. We hope you'll go back home to your family in America very shortly. But keep on the good work. Thank you, Dr. Singh. I'm now going to pass. Thank you. I'm now going to pass over to Ange. Sorry, Dr. Singh, what was that?
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everybody, for having me. Thank you so much for your time. Take care. God bless.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm now going to pass you over to Ange, who is now going to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Bobby. Our next speaker is Bal Kaur Sandhu. She is a diabetic specialist. She's the General Secretary of Khalsa Age. She's been involved in some amazing projects and communities. I'll be honest, I only spoken to her once, and just listening to her speak and her knowledge is phenomenal. And it's amazing just hearing her. Incredible female role model as well. Like I said, I've only spoken to her once, but I hold her in such high regard after that one conversation. So without further ado, Bal, I'll pass over to you.
Thank you, Ange. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh to everyone. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I just wanted to. Okay. I'm just going to play a very short video for everybody and share my screen. Can you see that? You can't see that?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Shall we do it? Shall we do it on our end?
If you can, if you're able
Fabulous.
to.
We'll do that.
गुरु गोबिंद सिंह जी बनाई हुई कौम है, एक खालसे की सिरजी हुई कौम है। सानू दस्या गुरु दशमेश जी ने, सानू दस्या गुरु दशमेश जी ने। सब तो पहला गज के एक बार फतेह बुलाओ, वाहेगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहेगुरु जी की फतेह। इन्ना क गज के बुलाओ कि दिल्ली तक आवाज़ां जान, एक बार उन्हां दे कंन हिल जान भी ये सारे इकट्ठे किवें बैठे आ। बहुत कोशिशां कीतियां सी उन्हां ने सानू वंडण दियां। दुनिया तो सब तो बड़ी प्रोटेस्ट, लार्जेस्ट प्रोटेस्ट है, और जिस तरह सानू पता है एक ग्लोबल हो गई है। दुनिया दे हरेक कोने दे विच इहदे बारे गलबात हो रही है, पर अज असीं गलबात करनी है। साडे नाल हैगे आ हरमन थिंग और फिर साडे नाल हैगे आ नाज़िया। देखो भैन जी, मैनूं लगदा है कि इहदे दो पक्ष ने, आपां जे दोवां दे वल ध्यान देईए। पहली चीज़ ये है कि लेडीज चाहे अज उस अंदोलन का हिस्सा ने और बहुत वधिया रोल अदा कर रही ने, पर इहदे नाल नाल एक चीज़ होर है कि हरेक लेडी जिहड़ी ओह खुल के कैमरे अगे माइक अगे आके बोलण लई तैयार नहीं। और जिस तरह सानू पता है बदनाम करने की काफ़ी कोशिश की गई पिछले दिनों च, भी ये 100 रुपए दिहाड़ी ते आंदे आ वगैरह वगैरह। नैशनल मीडिया कित्थे तक पहुँच चुकिया है, तो इस वेले नैशनल मीडिया के सिर किहो जे मेड़े लोग दे रहे हैं, ये आपां सारे जानते हैं।
ਜਿਹੜੀ ਸਾਡੀ ਬੀਬੀ ਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀਗੀ ਮੈਂ ਨਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੈਣਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਆਪੇ ਕੁਝ ਜਵਾਬ ਮਿਲ ਗਿਆ ਜੋ ਉਹਨੇ ਗੰਦੀਆਂ ਹਰਕਤਾਂ ਕੀਤੀਆਂ
ਪੰਜਾਬੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਖੂਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਗਲਤ ਦੇ ਖਿਲਾਫ ਬਹੁਤ ਜਲਦੀ ਖੜ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ ਇਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਡੇ ਗੁਰਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਮਿਲੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੀ ਧਰਤੀ ਤੋਂ
ਵਧੀਆ ਤੱਥ ਦੀ ਆ ਕੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਕੋਈ ਇਹ ਫालतू ਗੱਲਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਹਰ ਗੱਲ 'ਚ ਪੁਆਇੰਟ ਹੈ ਲੌਜਿਕ ਹੈ
ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਨੇੜੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਸੋ ਉਹਦੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮਸ ਚਾਹੇ ਜਿੰਨੀਆਂ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਵਰਗੀਆਂ ਕ੍ਰੀਏਟ ਕਰਕੇ ਜਾਣ ਪਰ ਉਹ ਛੋਟੀਆਂ ਹੀ ਲੱਗਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੀ ਮੰਜ਼ਿਲ ਨੇੜੇ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ
ਬੀਬੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੁਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਕੱਲ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਣੇ ਕੀ ਹੋ ਜੇ ਹਾਲਾਤ ਵਿਗੜਨ ਨਾ ਵਿਗੜਨ
ਵੀਡੀਓ ਵੇਖ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਤੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵਾਇਰਲ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗ ਬੈਠੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਉਸ ਮੋਰਚੇ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੀ ਕਹਾਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਸਾਂਝੀ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਨੇ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿ
ਉਵੇਂ ਇਸ ਮੂਵਮੈਂਟ 'ਚ ਟਿਕਰੀ ਬਾਰਡਰ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਆਈ ਮੈਟ ਫੀਮੇਲਸ ਮੈਂ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਬੀਬੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੀ ਜੋ ਟਰਾਲੀਆਂ 'ਚ ਸੋ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ
ਇੱਕ ਜਗ੍ਹਾ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਸਾਈਡ ਦੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਖੜਨਾ ਪਿਆ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਮੈਂ ਤੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਕੁੜੀ ਸੀ ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਸ਼ਖਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਿ ਵੈਸੇ ਹੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਲੰਘ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਕੋਲ ਆ ਕੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਖੜੇ ਹੋ ਗਏ
ਇਹ ਸਭ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਸ ਮੂਵਮੈਂਟ ਨੂੰ ਇੱਥੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਉਣ 'ਚ ਯੂਥ ਦਾ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਵੱਡਾ ਰੋਲ ਹੈ ਓਨਾ ਹੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਵੱਡੇ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗਾਂ ਦਾ ਰੋਲ ਹੈ ਓਨਾ ਹੀ ਬੀਬੀਆਂ ਦਾ ਰੋਲ ਹੈ ਓਨਾ ਹੀ ਬੰਦਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਰੋਲ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਪੀਪਲਸ ਮੂਵਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਕੰਪਲੀਟਲੀ ਪੀਪਲਸ ਮੂਵਮੈਂਟ ਹੈ ਡਰਿਵਨ ਬਾਈ ਪੀਪਲ
ਮੈਂ ਉੱਪਰ ਖੜੀ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਵੇਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਸੀ ਆਪਣੀ ਪ੍ਰਾਈਮ ਏਸ਼ੀਆ ਦੀ ਟੀਮ ਦੀ ਸੋ ਉੱਥੇ ਇੱਕ ਬਜ਼ੁਰਗ ਕਿਸਾਨ ਬੈਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਸੀ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਹੁੱਕਾ ਪੀ ਰਹੇ ਸੀ
ਮੈਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਸੀ ਹਰਮਨ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਦੋਂ ਸਟੇਜ ਤੇ ਬੋਲੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ ਬੜਾ ਜੋਸ਼ ਸੀਗਾ ਔਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੰਗੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਰਿਸੈਪਸ਼ਨ ਵੀ ਮਿਲੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਲੇਡੀਜ਼ ਇੰਨੇ ਸੀਗੇ
Thank you, Anne. So I'm assuming I'm okay to speak in English, everyone, yeah? Okay, so the reason why I wanted to play that very short trailer to the video is because women have been the backbone in this movement of the people. Started off with our Punjabi women, which we all know have are very strong and very empowered. So trying to give them knitting needles probably won't go down well, I would think, because if somebody tried to give me knitting needles, I won't say what I'll do with them. So the women really helped mobilize this movement. And when you speak to some of the youngsters that are there, they said, my judgy gave me a flag, my dai gave me a flag, my mussy gave me a flag. You know, they encouraged the youth to come out. Now, just picking up earlier, we talked about psychological trauma. Punjab has suffered, all the states across India have suffered. It's not that Punjab, you know, obviously we're close to Punjab, we talk about Punjab, but Punjab has suffered a lot of trauma. We had the Green Revolution, Punjab led that. We had the emergency, Indira Gandhi's emergency, Punjab led the protests against that. We all know recent history of the 80s and the 90s, how much bloodshed Punjab has seen. So there is a lot of unresolved psychological trauma. And Punjabi people are resilient, so perhaps we don't see it in day-to-day life, and we have this aspect of Chaddi Kala, and we see all the smiles and the, you know, the full-on Chaddi Kala spirit in the protest. But these people are, you know, very distressed. They've all lost loved ones. We know about farmer suicides. We know about the issues of 84 and 90s where people have lost sons. We have villages that haven't had a wedding for decades because there were no youngsters left. So not wishing to divert from the subject at hand, the Kissans, but people are very traumatized. And I truly believe that the farmers' protest, you know, it's an absolutely essential subject, and it's an issue that needs to be resolved. Those bills need to be repealed, sorry. But it's given a platform for people to come out and express that anger. Now, how we're doing that, you know, that's a challenge, and that remains a challenge because, as we know, Punjabis and Haryanvis, we're very hot-blooded. So trying to keep the focus is always going to be a challenge. But this movement has united people that have been divided into, you're from Haryana, you're from Malwa, you know, you're this caste, you're that caste. This is one cause, and because it is a genuine cause, it's going to impact everybody, from the landowners to the people that work on, you know, daily labor rates, and the market, people that go out and buy food in the market. We all know it's going to impact on them as well. But this is a platform that has brought everyone together, and it's allowing people to express themselves. Now, the next generation are seeing India suppressing movement, suppressing free speech. You know, India's supposed to be the greatest democracy. The younger generation are really struggling with, whoa, what's going on here? You know, I'm used to seeing my Punjabi songs, and Punjab is wonderful, and now all of a sudden they're seeing this other side to it, and it hurts. And I'm seeing a lot of younger generation, you know, our children sort of 25 and younger, they're really struggling trying to get their head around, like, whoa, this is India. You know, we love India. We love going to India and going on holiday, and, you know, having everybody fuss over us because we speak with an American accent or a British accent. And now they're seeing this side of it. And it's, I think a lot of things have come out, and they will come out, because India is not equipped to deal with a movement like this. So I really think that we're going to see a lot more yet, and there'll probably be challenging times ahead, but we've all seen the dirty games and the sheer oppression, really. So coming back to the women's role in this, women have played an absolutely vital role. We all know and see images of the protest, and we see women sitting there in trolleys and young girls, and, you know, the Bibian keeping the spirits up, you know, supporting people. What we haven't seen is what's going on back home. So that's a 45-minute video. If you want to watch it, you can watch it on our YouTube channel, the Carlside YouTube channel. But it talks about the role of women supporting the protest and enabling the protest. So what you've got to remember is these farmers that are sitting here and have been, they have crops back home. They have harvest. The daily labor work still needs to continue. And the women and young girls are doing that. They're watering. The wheat is in the ground at the moment, and the girls are going out and watering that. Now, it's been cold. What the government has been doing is not giving electricity during the day. So the girls are forced to go out in the cold, dark nights to water the field. Because if they don't, there's going to be no crops come Vaisakhi. There's going to be no wheat. So that's an unknown that's going on back home. And they're being harassed. They're being harassed by the police. The police are raiding houses. The police are asking people, how many people from your house have gone to the Morja? When are they back? And when they go back, they're being questioned. Who funded you? How did you go? Just on that point of funding, there's quite a lot of talk previously about funding. There's a real issue with overseas funding reaching the Morja and being sent to India at the moment. Our regular projects are suffering because the banks are not accepting any money from overseas. The NIA, you would have heard in Christmas, just before Christmas time, there were these huge investigations that were launched. They're looking at every pound or dollar that's coming in from abroad, because they want to prove that this is not a movement from people in India. This is not an Indian movement. This is people from outside interfering in the internal politics of India. So hence, when you go on social media, the classic comeback is it's an internal matter, and, you know, people from abroad are corrupting our poor farmers. We don't have any issues in India. We don't need outside influences. And that's why Rihanna and poor Greta have ended up with an FIR against them. So good luck with that one. So yeah, so women have been absolutely essential in this movement, as has everybody else, the youth. There has been upset after the 26th, as we all know, but let's see how that all unfolds. But every single person that walked towards Delhi, they've made a contribution. In a people's movement, it doesn't matter which sect, what your political ideology is, you know, which faith you belong to. It's a mass movement of the people for the people. And I really do believe that it's an unstoppable force, and the government is going to have to be forced to do something. And having this outside interest now has really put them on the back foot. So we see a lot of negativity towards people that are making judgments and, you know, just calling it out for what it is. It's a suppression of basic human rights, you know, blocking off the internet, blocking off water. Dr. Swarman spoke about water. Water's been an issue, electricity has been an issue. So as you've probably all seen, our teams on the ground on Singhu border, Tikri border, we have huge shelters that have been set up. They sleep at least 800 people. We've had electricity cut off. So the locals were supplying electricity. We were paying for it. It wasn't illegal, but they cut it off. And the locals were penalized for allowing electricity to the sites. They were told they could only have their electricity back if they don't allow anybody from the site to use it. So, you know, there's a lot more to come out, but people are struggling. People are struggling within the protest sites, and it's going to get worse. As the weather warms up, there's going to be issue with water, having safe drinking water in the heat, and also protection from the shelter. So, you know, shelters like Dr. Sawaman spoke about, they'll be very welcome. And that's it really. I think I could talk lots, but obviously you're all sitting there listening intently. So should we open up for questions?
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Right,
Just before we're going to do that, we're going to have our next speakers by Sukhjeevan Singh. Can you put that? I think when we're talking about the Kissan movement as well, there's lots of history. If we were to look at our community, our ancestors, our forefathers, the sacrifices are made. Today is also the 100 years of Nankana Sahib Saka. From a personal level, our Pradadi's brother Sant Vasaka Singh was involved in many of the campaigns, and he actually received an honour from the Akal Tata's recognition and the title Sant Sabai. When in 1922, Guru Ka Bagh Morcha happened, 1923 in Jeto Morcha, Tibbi Sahib, Jeto as well. So almost about 260 people died whilst trying to get the keys of the Mahants of the day. And I think today it's important that we remember those sacrifices that have been made. And funny enough, it was actually looking at, it was the Sikhs that actually started the agitation, peaceful agitations, which actually Gandhi got an inspiration how to lead those peaceful things. I know everyone sort of recognizes Gandhi for his peaceful protests, but it was actually the Sikhs that started it. And even during the Morche of about, before 84 happened, over 250 people gave were actually jailed and imprisoned. So I just want to introduce Apana Sukhjeevan Singh, who's actually a Guni Gyani as well, born in this country, got a lot of insight. And I've worked quite closely with Bhai Sawhani. Bhai Sawhani is also was a spokesman for the Sikh Council UK, and you can read from the bio the kind of how he's been involved in the COVID-19 pandemic, informing BAME communities, protecting them, and also he's the founder of Jyoti Swarup Foundation as well. But also he's worked quite closely with Seek to Inspire. So if I can ask Bhai Sukhjeevan Singh to do his talk, and thereafter as well actually bring Benji and also Apana Bhai Gyani Sukhjeevan Singh to actually to the questions as well. So if I can hand over to Gyani Sukhjeevan Singh.
Everyone, for those of you that are Sikh, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I found this very insightful and very inspiring, especially listening to Benji Bako speaking about the role of women. Movements, agitations, protests, these are expressions of our freedom as a human being, as a species. Unless they carry on, our basic freedoms are not protected. The farmers' protest is the largest agitation that we've probably seen in our lives. As Harjeet Singh was just saying before me, it is a continuation of expressions of freedoms throughout religions, cultures, and all around the world. Like Harjeet Singh was saying, today for the Sikhs is a very special day because we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Nankana Sahib Saka. And I do apologize, I'm not quite well today, so I won't be speaking for very long, and I'll try and keep this quite succinct and brief. So essentially a little bit of background. The Sikhs came about on the earth. We're currently the 5th biggest religion in the world. Our founder was Guru Nanak Dev Ji in 1469 AD. If you look at the world comparatively, the medieval world, around the world, Guru Nanak was very progressive very liberal in their approach, but also as an enlightened being, as an incarnation of what we believe God. Guru Nanak had lots of very strong messages about the freedoms and the inclusion of everyone. Guru Nanak Dev Ji passed on his role to the subsequent Guru, and we have a series of 10 living Gurus, of which Guru Gobind Singh Ji in 1708 was the last human Guru, as such you could say. So when Guru Gobind Singh left the world in 1708, the climate or the circumstance of India was such. India, we have to remember, was always a princedom. Now there is such a sense of ultranationalism, and around the world that is the case, but maybe 100 to 150 years ago, much of the world was not split into countries. It was small regions, dialects, languages, cultures that amalgamated together to make the earth. Now, even with the enlightenment of the 21st century, borders and all of these things are so much more rigid. So when Guru Gobind Singh left the world, the Sikhs were very active, and they were spreading their message. And very soon after, the Mughal regime of the time, which was an Islamist regime, it was an ultra-radical form of Islamic extremism, much like we see in ISIL today. At the time, the Mughal government was ruling, and that led to a Sikh genocide, which lasted the best part of 50 to 60 years. Eventually, the Sikhs grew in power, and they established their own kingdom, a very powerful and a very peaceful kingdom, in which there was a lot of multicultural, multi-faith aspect. Muslims, Hindus, and even the first Christians that had come into India were living harmoniously. That lasts until 1849 with the demise of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, after which the whole of India bit by bit is annexed, so it becomes a colony. It is colonialized, and the British Raj begins. It starts from a trade and commerce venture by the British East India Company. And when you look at the farmers' protest, this is trauma that my people have. At one time, it was the East India Company that came into India, and it led into the rule of the whole of India. And in 1849, the East India Company makes its first steps towards Punjab, and eventually it's taken over by the Crown. And the next thing you know, the whole of India has the Union Jack, the British flag flying on it. So that happens in 1857. A very famous mutiny, a very big rebellion in the Indian Army by Hindus and Muslims was carried out. The reasons behind that was because the British colonial officers were not aware of the religious sentiments and the sensitivities relating to the people that they were employing. It was just, you work for us, so you have to follow our rules. That led to a huge problem for the British Empire, and Queen Victoria made a declaration at the time that from now on, the British in any of their colonies will not actively engage in interfering in religious matters. So a little bit of religious liberation was found after that mutiny. But what ended up happening is, as a consequence of persecution for almost a century now, a lot of Sikh shrines were handed over to people that were less religious, that were not orthodox or practicing Sikhs. They were handed over to the Udasi saints that were a crossover between the Hindu and the Sikh faith. And the reason that was done was because Sikhs that are visibly and distinctively very identifiable, they were being persecuted and massacred. So they had to go into hiding. And they had handed over their shrines to kind of Hindu Sikh crossover sects like the Udasis, and that carried on. It worked quite well initially, but eventually a lot of these religious institutes were corrupted, and they got the patronage of the government, and the government of the time, as a process of social engineering to control civilians, to control people. They were indirectly empowering people to take charge of these shrines, so that people would be under their control. So in 1873, so moving towards the 1900s and coming on to Sakka Nankana Sahib, what begins to happen is a group of Sikhs becomes quite worried, because what they're seeing inside of Sikh temples isn't Sikh practice. It was very much Hindu practice or even non-religious practice. You know, in 1873, a series of meetings begin. And if you imagine the Golden Temple complex, Harmandir Sahib, many other shrines had completely their way of worship. It didn't even look Sikh. There was idol worship. There were lots of social vices, social malices, alcohol, drugs, intoxicants that were happening in religious shrines. And that was a big issue. So in 1920, these groups of Sikh reformers known as the Singh Sabha Leher, they looked and they examined aspects that where has it gone wrong? You know, the Guru's left us such an illustrious and an inclusive message. Where has it gone wrong? Why have we come to this? And they look at one of the things, and India is afflicted with a big problem, which is the caste system. The caste system is, if you are born into a certain family, then you're not allowed, your vocations, your opportunities were not open as if you were born in a higher caste. And that was the same for the control of religious shrines and religious practice. Even Gurdwaras, and the Sikh faith really prides itself that we do not believe in caste. But at that time, the offering of prasad, which means any offering that you would take to a temple, was restricted to Sikhs of higher class and caste. So the Singh Sabha Leher, these group of reformers, see these practices as very anti-Sikh and very regressive. So they begin an agitation, which in 1920 really comes into its full momentum, and they begin in October by successfully taking over Harmandir Sahib, the Golden Temple. And the pretext to that was some Sikhs that were initiated from low castes, so-called untouchables, the Dalits, much like Nodeep Kaur is incarcerated today. She comes from a Dalit family. And these families were converting into Sikhism because of its message. They were not allowed to enter the Harmandir Sahib complex or to offer prayers or have their prayers recited by the priests. So subsequently, many of the main Gurdwaras, Taran Taran Sahib, Harmandir Sahib, the Golden Temple, Khadur Sahib, and other temples, Gurdwaras, were then taken over by the Sikhs. And then coming into Nankana Sahib, Nankana Sahib was the most controversial of all shrines at the time. It's the birthplace of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Ayana means house. It's the house of Guru Nanak Dev. And this had fallen into the hands of a very corrupt priest, Mahant Narayan Das. And his exploits were so controversial and so explicit and radical that they even outraged the secular parts of India, people of no religion. He had become very famous, or infamous, I should say, for raping a young girl that had come on a pilgrimage to Nankana Sahib. She'd gone back, she'd reported it to the police. The police at the time, which was under the British Raj, did nothing about that. This gave him more confidence, and he hired a group of prostitutes from Lahore, and he brought them into the Nankana Sahib shrine as a weekly kind of, you know, I hate to use the phrase, but a sex party inside of the most holiest of shrines for the Sikh faith. This carried on, and the Sikhs became increasingly worried because he was surrounded with police and army protection. He had patronage from the government, On February the 16th, 1921. So if you imagine a few days just before this particular day that we're celebrating, the Sikhs hold a meeting in which it's decided that we will march peacefully to Nankana Sahib to regain control of the shrine. So they leave, and as they leave, they perform a prayer. And we have a Sikh tradition known as the Hukamnama, which is a random reading of Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. We, as the Sikhs, we don't idol worship, we worship Shabad, scripture, the written word of God. So when a Hukamnama is taken, Guru Granth Sahib Ji is opened to a random, what you may call a page, we would actually call it an ang or a limb of the Guru. And the Shabad or the message that came, it suggested the actual Shabad was Tanman Kaat Sab Arpi Vich Agni Aap Jalai, which means that for the right thing, for the righteous cause, even if your body is cut into small pieces or if you are burnt, you should still progress. So with that message in their hearts, this group of Sikhs left Amritsar and they marched towards Nankana Sahib, which is in Lahore. On the way, they were informed that, you know, there may be a bloodbath there. Mahant Narayan Das has hired lots and lots of people and they are heavily armed and you should be apprehensive about going there. So again, they went to the local Gurdwara en route and they performed a prayer, an ardas, and the same message, the same random reading came, and we believe that was divine revelation. And it was the same message, Tanman Kaat Sab Arpi Vich Agni Aap Jalai. And that is testimony for us as Sikhs of our living Guru, that the light of Guru Nanak Dev Ji was passed into scripture, into Sri Guru Granth Sahib Ji. So they hear this and they're actually told by Sikh scholars at the time that, you know, even the Guru is suggesting that there may be a bloodbath. Maybe you should reconsider, but they say, no, we've decided to make a move. So eventually they move towards Nankana Sahib. And what does happen there is a bloodbath. Around 86 Sikhs were martyred, and there were lots of Sikhs, including women, that were beaten. The police conveniently didn't turn up until after the whole event had passed on. We Sikhs have, you know, as Christians, remember the Passion of Christ. We not just with our gurus, but with Sikhs that have been martyred, we have very, very strong images, like some of the early Christian saints of how they were martyred. And one of those images is of Bhai Mati Das, that in the Mughal regime, again, we're talking kind of this medieval India, was wrapped with wool and burnt. And again, in 1921, by Lashman Singh Tarowal, he was tied to a tree and he was set on fire. So this was very, very reminiscent of those horrible and tragic times of the Mughals that had passed. And we came to a realization as a community that maybe a regime has changed. Maybe the Mughals have gone and we saw the British Raj. Many Sikhs saw that as a form of liberation. That, you know, they've brought the trains in and they've brought lots of different systems of education and jobs and opportunities. You have to understand the context. The First World War had just finished and lots of Sikhs had conscripted as it was a source of employment. But this Nankana Sahib Sakka, this incident was a turning point. And like Harjeet Singh said, Mahatma Gandhi visited in March, and he said that this kind of patience, this kind of peaceful agitation that the Sikhs had led and not retaliated, and had actually caused themselves to be martyred in the face of such brutal violence, was a really big inspiration for his Satyagraha movement. And later that year, the Sikhs would then go on and take control of Nankana Sahib. This is very relevant because when we look at the farmers' protest, I mean, we hear people and kind of internal and external so-called experts, often government-sponsored or government-favored, that give this narrative that why don't you just stop? the government isn't going to budge. But our history is that even in the face of adversity, in the face of violence and brutality, you carry on and you leave everything on to the Guru. That's it really from myself. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you so much to all the speakers, and thank you, Sukhjeevan Singh, for that as well. We're just going to move on to the question and answer, and I know with the timers on, I know about you did say you have to leave soon as well. So if we do have any questions that are directly linked to the speakers, anyone who wants to say, you can either put your hand up now, or if you do, write them in the chat. So I can quickly start with Frankie. I know you've got your hand up.
Hi, so obviously I have tons of questions, but I'm going to keep it short. So what is the biggest way that we can help women right now? I have like friends over there who kind of like work with alternative energy sources. So it's like, is it more like connecting to people who can figure out how to get solar panels to these villages and help the women so that maybe they have some kind of electricity and they're not totally in the dark? Like, what is the most impactful way we can help besides spreading awareness? And then also this issue of donations, because you brought it up in the sense that basically it's almost impossible to get money into India right now because of all the internal investigations. So what are we doing to do the workaround? Like, how are we mitigating that? And then on to like the history portion. Was there a treaty when Punjab was annexed? Like, is there a treaty? Because in Hawaii, there was never a treaty. Like, the government, the monarchy was illegally overthrown. And basically, the Hawaiian kingdom and the US are at war, technically. This is an illegal occupation. It's not actually America. And so the indigenous people here are constantly fighting for their right to advocate for sovereignty. Is this a thought on the table? Like, if, for example, like the protests continue and nothing is done and more people die, like when is enough enough? And then what are we doing about that?
Do you want me to take that? Yeah. Okay. So on the what is required, honestly, at the moment, nothing. And the people there are very resourceful. And what you've got to remember, Frankie, is these are people from all around India. It's not just Punjabi people that are sitting on the states, on the borders. So they're people from across states, and Haryana is nearer than Punjab. So people are very resourceful. They're supporting each other. And, to be really frank, there is no need for anything at the moment. That's a constantly changing situation. And on top of that, we've got the struggle of the government not allowing anything from overseas to reach there. Anybody that wants to do anything, I think at the moment, the greatest need is to raise awareness. One tweet from Rihanna was like a bullet across the world. It worked. It raised it. It amplified it to a completely different level. So that's what's required at the moment, to amplify what's going on. So resources wise, not much at the moment, but as I say, the weather is changing and there may be need for water purification tablets, things like that going on. We don't know at the moment. So it's a case of watch this space and see how it unfolds. You've got lots of medics on the ground. And the thing with medicine, I'm really glad that Dr. Swami, as a fellow clinician, I panic when I see medicines being given out freely like sweets, because medicines are quite dangerous. So I'm glad that, there are people on the ground that have that clinical awareness to make sure everything's being done appropriately. So resources wise, nothing. Secondly, your point about treaties and things, this isn't just a Punjab issue. Punjab led the movement, they initiated it, but we have people from UP, Haryana, Gujarat, there are people coming from all over. So at this moment in time, like I said earlier when I was speaking, there are lots of issues. There are so many issues that will take decades to unravel and come to some sort of resolution on them. Now is not the time. Now the time is unity is where the strength is. And once we go back to our relevant states with this unity, the potential is endless to make changes to our daily lives and address some of the things that have been going on. So now really the call is for unity across states, across faiths, and just, you know, deal with the job in hand and let's just get that sorted. But yeah, there are multiple issues that need to be addressed. Does that answer your question?
No, totally. I understand that it's like super complex and there's so much intersectionality going on that the unpacking is going to take time. I think it's just hard for me, like watching from the outside, like seeing so much violence, and it's spanned like forever across eternity of time. When looking at the history, it's like I feel super helpless and I'm just trying to figure out the best way to help. And so I heard you when you said amplify, just continue to spread awareness and then keep my ear on the ground for anything that comes out that is needed. Thank you so much.
100%. It's the amplification that's required to get the voice out there. And people across India have become so resilient. It's almost a way of life that there's going to be lathi charge. There's going to, you know, you're going to get beaten by the police. And it shouldn't be in the world's largest democracy. That should not be a given that, oh, it's acceptable to be battered by the police. But it is. And having that amplified across the world is the most powerful thing for us.
Thank you so much for that question, Frankie. If we go over to Bobby.
Thank you, Dira. Bao, was a question for you. And first of all, it was more of an embarrassment for me in the fact that I've never really recognised the role of women in this whole movement. And I feel embarrassed about it because my wife is on this call, keeps reminding me about the role of women, not just in this call, but women generally, including my own life. The question is, how can the likes of me and everyone ensure that the role of women is now placed at the forefront for everyone to know? And a part of me feels it's social media's fault because we are pumped information about the men, and that's all we see and watch. And it wasn't until you today that for the first time I've thought, hang on, what about the women? What can we do to make sure that information is out there as much as the importance of the male farmers?
I think we need to just expose it more. That's all we need to do. It's happening, it's there, and it's been happening for centuries, right? We just need to expose it. Indian culture itself is male dominated, as you know. Often women that raise their voice are seen as troublemakers. I know. So you just celebrate women and encourage them. And, you know, like here, we've got a number of women on here, just give them the voice and the confidence to speak up. So if you listen to that trailer again, Harmantind is an anchor from Punjab. She does a really good daily documentary, like a current affairs thing, program. And she's a really good role model. She's, you know, no frills. She's just she has substance. She's to the point, and she says things, and they're sound. You know, they're factually sound. People like that need more exposure, but women often lack the confidence to come in front of the camera. And that's when I asked her, I said, why is it that we are just seeing images of men? The stage is dominated by men. Why are we not seeing women? And often, unfortunately, having worked with the Sikh Council in the UK, women are a token gesture. And then if you want to contribute and you've got something to put out there, you have to face a lot more challenges than if you were a man. And that, I think, if we challenge that at grassroots, things will automatically change. Our next generation, my daughter asks me, why is it all men? Why aren't we there? Encourage that, nurture independent thinking, give women, girls the confidence to raise their voice, learn about their history and speak up. So in a nutshell, I think that's what I can say. Bobby.
Thank you, Mel, for enlightening me and enlightening all of us. And I'll try and do more. If I don't, my wife will make sure I do.
I'm sure.
Perfect, thank you for that. And just a quick question for Sukhjeevan Singh. On the day that India, like the SGPC, weren't allowed to go to Pakistan to commemorate the 100 years, and how come that was the case? Maybe he's had to drop. Don't know if anyone else can answer that question.
Sorry, what was the question?
It was about the 100 years of the Nangana, why the India weren't allowed to go to Pakistan. I'm not sure if anyone knows the answer.
So again, it's political, isn't it? It's political. So anything that's gaslighting Punjabis, the Sikh community, you're going to see a lot more of that over the coming months. They want a reaction. And this is why the Kissan Union leaders keep saying, you know, peace, peace, peace. As hard as it is and as challenging it is, that's what they're trying to do. But we're being gaslighted. I think Jagdar's got his hand up.
And
I just wanted to contribute to that question. It's purely political. Pakistan has given those people the visa. It's a Pakistani government that could have refused if they didn't want them to go. And BJP government is just showing that this is what we can do. And we have to be religions and challenge these issues. And we have to raise them here as well. Why were the people stopped to visit one of our important seats? And it also comes to our ardas as well, कि ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰੇ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਰਹਿ ਗਏ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਖੁੱਲੇ ਮਿਲਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਆ. But this is just purely political, and BJP and Modi showing that if you don't toe the line, this is what the Indian government is capable of.
It's the show of strength, isn't it? To remind us that we're enslaved.
And thank you for those questions. I'll hand over to Jigmun because I know your hand's up in the Jigmun. You can take it on from there.
Yeah, very good answers by both there. Also, I just want to reiterate what the Akal Takht Sahib Jathedar said as well, that going over to Nankana Sahib, which is such a historic, iconic, holy soil for the Sikhs. But not only that, but it's just because of that anniversary also. Today marks 100 years since that massacre. And what the Jathedar in his video or in his announcement, what he said was actually very true, that yes, this is political, because when the Hindus, and again, this isn't nothing about any other faith or anything like that, but when the Hindus will go on their pilgrimage to the river Ganges, the Indian government won't use the excuse of coronavirus, but they're using this excuse or just to stop the Sikhs from visiting Nankana Sahib, where they were just going to go and then come back. So yes, this does have a political matter to it, but it just goes to show on one of the most important days of this year, remembering this specific event, why Sikhs are not allowed to go over, because everything was ready. That Jatha was ready to leave Amritsar. Are there any other questions? No more questions?
I think it's for you to wrap it up, Bal. So, Joe, good morning. For you to wrap it up.
So a massive thank you again goes out to all of our speakers for taking their time out, sharing their knowledge, their experience on the Zoom session today. I'd also like to say a massive thank you again to the viewers, to the Sangat who join, listen and take part in the question and answer session week in, week out. I hope you've all learned something and taken something new away from this. We have to remember what is going on and what we are really trying to achieve. Everyone has their own expectations, which is absolutely fine. But in general, we must all remain united at all times. Obviously, due to the current pandemic, we cannot have large gatherings inside of our Gurdwara. And therefore, we have tried to do the next best thing, which is to reach out to the viewers, to the people from all different backgrounds, to keep them informed of what is going on the borders of Delhi, and where we can have a safe space where we can learn and share the news, ideas, and work on something to achieve results and solutions. We must remember that this is a long-term struggle for freedom. It's always been a struggle. It always will be a struggle. But we've been through similar struggles like this before many times in our past, including our Guru Sahibs, including our Shaheeds. And With the blessings of the Guru, we have always come out on top. But I was just thinking in the week, what is the real reason that why we are here? Living outside of Punjab is very difficult. And we all have our connection with Punjab. But at the same time, we are also very disconnected to Punjab to a certain extent. Our mission is to save Punjab by investing back into Punjab. We need to understand why a lot of Punjabis reside here in the West or outside of Punjab and why they did this many years ago. It's because the economy, the educational system of that country failed us. And it makes you wonder that how bad it must have been back then for our fathers, our mothers, our grandmothers, our forefathers to leave their home. And we are blessed with the opportunity that if we are born out in the West, we have the opportunity that our forefathers presented to us. But it is now time to use everything that we have learned to help the current people of Punjab. Many organizations such as Khalsa Aid, even with Gurpreet Singh, who we had on last week, Saving Punjab, the great work that they've recently been doing, including Dr. Swaiman Singh, who was on, and he's only been there for a small amount of time. But these are examples of what our gurus taught us and why the idea of Dasband was introduced. We need to use our Dasband wisely, and for it to use that wisely to make an effect in Punjab. We can use our time, money, effort, ideas, but we will see all this through practicality. Let us use everything that we have in our advantage. Having Punjab in our blood is something to be proud of. Recognize and reflect who we really well and truly are. There's something in our blood, something in our soil, something in our history that tells us that we should never ever give up. We face many challenges living out here in the West, but the biggest challenge, I personally feel that living out here in the West, is if we can keep our identity, our beliefs of faith, but also to maintain our Punjabi language. We want Punjab to always be there for our kids and our grandkids. But what we have learned here out in the West, at some point, we need to go back in order to help people and our families back in our villages. So regardless of whatever situation is going on, and we have many feelings and opinions, we have to remember why the farmers are protesting and also the human rights violations which are being committed by the government of India. Hitler gave the order to kill millions of Jews, but surely it's not just that fact that we need to learn and remember. We need to learn how and why members of the normal German public developed the mentality to normalize and the execution of innocent Jews. Why was that normal? We are seeing a mirror image of this normalization. Horrific actions of human rights violations such as rape, domestic abuse, torture, abductions, and murdering. People being picked up like journalists, protesters, freedom fighters, helpers, doctors being attacked. But it's sad that when we look at this, that so many in India and around the world are prepared to completely turn a blind eye and ignore this. And we need to keep engaging and putting pressure on our politicians and our MPs at all times. Please write to your MP if you haven't already. And we will also get a joint letter from our community, which if you haven't wrote a letter individually, then we can all put our names on one letter. We know that recently in Watford, the Liberal Democrats, the Labour Party, have come on and said some amazing things in order to help us. And they have also been in touch in order to sort out and organize a cross-party letter. Finally, we are getting some form of a response from Dean Russell. And I know that from just the top of my head that I know 2 people have got that response. Besides Sangati, 2 people is not enough. We as a community, how many of us have actually physically wrote a letter to him, called up his office, or even emailed him? That is crucial for us to do. And making use of this platform that we have on Zoom, whoever the speakers are, we must respect them at all times, but we should not hesitate to ask any question that we have, because Sad Sangati is our people that are dying, our people who are struggling. So we need to make use of all the platforms and all the skills that we have, and as much knowledge that we have, and it is our duty to educate other people, take action to help Punjab. And how we can help off by starting Punjab is by making up a plan and starting off with just our families and our village in Punjab. So again, thank you so much for yet another brilliant week. Next week, hopefully that we can continue this and carry this on. And above all, Sad Sangati, it's because of you that these Zoom calls are still going on, because we need some form of a connection. We need some form of updates. And through the speakers and with their extensive knowledge and experience, they are providing that to us. So then hopefully we can take action. We all have something to give back. So the last thing that I would like to say is that we just got this short video that I'm going to ask Didas to play, because Sad Sangati, we can all help, but above all, the most powerful weapon and where this all begins from is the support and the bharosa, the trust that we have in Akal Purkh Vaheguru. And we can all do ardas. We can all pray for the benefit of all humans around the world, and especially the safety of the Kisans and anyone who's dying in the world of injustice. So I'm just gonna ask Dira to kindly play this video, and that will be the end of this section. Thank you so much.
ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ, ਧੰਨ ਧੰਨ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਨਾਜ਼ਰ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ, ਆਪ ਜੀ ਨੂੰ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਨਾਜ਼ਰ ਜਾਣਦਿਆਂ ਹੋਇਆਂ ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦੇ ਪਾਵਨ ਚਰਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਹੈ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ, ਜੋ ਭਾਰਤ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਖੇਤੀ ਵਿਰੁੱਧ ਕਾਲੇ ਕਾਨੂੰਨ ਬਣਾਏ ਗਏ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਰੱਦ ਕਰਵਾਉਣ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੱਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਖਾਤਰ ਸਮੂਹ ਕਿਸਾਨ ਜਥੇਬੰਦੀਆਂ ਪਿਛਲੇ ਕੁਝ ਦਿਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਕਰ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਹਨ। ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰਨੀ, ਸਮੂਹ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਿਰ ਤੇ ਆਪਣਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਭਰਿਆ ਹੱਥ ਰੱਖਣਾ, ਇਸ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਮਯਾਬੀਆਂ ਬਖਸ਼ਣੀਆਂ, ਹਰ ਦੀਵਾਨੇ ਹਰ ਮੈਦਾਨੇ ਫਤਿਹ ਬਖਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਨੀ ਨੇ। ਜੋ ਆਪਣੇ ਹੱਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਲੜਾਈ ਲੜਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਹੀ ਕਿਸਾਨ ਵੀਰਾਂ ਦੀ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਸੱਚੇ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਸੇਵਕਾਂ ਦੀ ਲਾਜ ਪੱਤ ਰੱਖਣੀ। ਪਾਵਨ ਕੜਾ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦੀ ਦੇਵ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੈ, ਦਰ ਪ੍ਰਵਾਨ ਹੋਵੇ, ਪ੍ਰਵਾਨ ਹੋਇਆ ਪ੍ਰਸ਼ਾਦ ਸੰਗਤ ਵਿੱਚ ਵਰਤਾਉਣ ਦੀ ਆਗਿਆ ਬਖਸ਼ੋ ਜੀ। ਨਾਨਕ ਨਾਮ ਚੜ੍ਹਦੀ ਕਲਾ, ਤੇਰੇ ਪਾਣੇ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਬੋਲੇ
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you very much, everyone. See you again next week. Thanks.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru